Welcome to the RE Human Layer Security Podcast, the show that flips the script on cybersecurity. I'm Tim Sadler, the CEO and co-founder of Tessian, and in each episode, I'll be interviewing IT and business leaders about why we need to protect people, not just machines and data, to stop breaches and empower businesses to achieve their missions. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I can't quite believe we're already at episode 10. We've got a great interview lined up for you this week as I'm joined by Ray Espinoza, the CISO at Cobalt, a Pentest-as-a-Service platform that's modernizing the traditional static penetration testing model. Ray has over 15 years experience in information security management, having previously held senior security roles at Amazon, Proofpoint, Cisco, Workday, Gainsight, and eBay, just to name a few. Ray, it's great to have you here.
Tim, it's great to be here. Thank you.
I think to kick things off, it'd be great if you could explain what does Cobalt do and what is life as the CISO of Cobalt like?
Two things near and dear to my heart. So I will first say that I had the opportunity to be a Cobalt customer years back when I was at Proofpoint, and found I've always hated that pen tests were delivered in a fashion where you found a smart individual, they came on site, they did some black box work, and then they handed you a PDF report as the deliverable. I had to take that report, operationalize it with my team, copy and paste tickets. I was the translator. I had to answer their questions. I came up on the incident response side. I didn't come up from the application security side. So I always found myself a little bit of a disadvantage. And I always thought there has to be a better way. When Cobalt came around, they did exactly that. They built a platform that would enable myself as a customer, as well as pen testers, to be able to engage, get real-time access to vulnerabilities as they're found, to be able to bring in engineers, product subject matter experts to talk about context, to discuss remediation, and then to get that into the remediation flow many times before the end report is delivered at the end, which is something you can download from our platform overall. But Cobalt essentially has changed the game of the way that pen testing was archaically delivered to adding technology to it, adding a fantastic global talent pool of pen testers that we background check, skills assess, interview to ensure they meet our bar. So they're all about collaboration and driving education and understanding so that we can quickly identify vulnerabilities and remediate them at scale. And that's something that we've continued to build around. It's amazing to be a customer zero of this offering now at Cobalt, to be the CISO and to drive security into our platform, drive security into other parts of our business, but to consume and to be able to talk to other customers around better ways to do pen testing and how it fits more of today's agile environment than what they did historically when we did pen testing on an asset once a year because we had to. Then we had other tools in between.
And at a high level, for our audience that maybe are less familiar with pen testing as a concept, what does that entail, and what are some of the key threats that you're looking out for or assessing?
The way that I explain it is we find vulnerabilities in your assets, which be your application or your networks, before threat actors, bad folks out there. We help find them first. We get them to you in a way that you can action them, that are meaningful and that you understand, so that you can properly remediate some of these vulnerabilities. So you lower the chance, or you reduce the potential of being hacked, of being exploited by some of these vulnerabilities.
And there's a topic that I know is close to your heart as it is to mine, but what role does the human factor play in all of this?
The human factor is everything. I mean, we are always the ones making the decision around what we think is best, what this vulnerability means, how do I properly address it, how do I, more importantly, as I think about as a security leader, how do we solve this problem systemically rather than individually? If I have a class of vulnerabilities, can we find that and root that out of our environment completely? And if so, that takes a deeper level of understanding of a vulnerability once it's found, than finding a specific vulnerability, looking at it, treating it as an individual ticket or a case of, we found this one flaw in this one application, I'm going to fix it and move on to the next piece. So helping that engineer understand the problem at a much deeper level enables them to look at it and say, well, what can we do differently? Can I add smarter tests to our build pipeline? Can I educate those around me, or can we seek education collectively so that we can get better as a whole and not solve this as a class of vulnerabilities here and now, rather than have to deal with them time and time again over the next few years.
And before we jumped on this podcast, Ray, you and I were talking about your approach as a CISO, and also what I think is a pretty unique approach that Cobalt have as an organization for how you actually keep your employees safe and secure. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Absolutely. One of the first things that I told Cobalt when I joined is that the coolest thing about working for a security company is that you get to actually learn and understand security. And I really take that to heart. So one of the areas that I focused on early on was my security awareness program. And we thought we can clearly go beyond what was new hire orientation and once a year compliance training, and actually help folks understand different facets of security and make it fun, engaging, and easy to understand. And so we thought, what are the best ways that we can deliver this, knowing that individuals learn in different ways, and how can we be cognizant of that, and how can we allow that to shape the way that we think about our security awareness program? So that led us to a few different key components of this program. The first being is we created a security office hours. We started out weekly. It was a half-hour session, and it was meant to be a safe space for our employees to come and ask questions about security. Hey, I read this thing and I don't understand. Can you explain it to me? What does this mean to Cobalt, and what should be on the lookout for? It was a lot. It was very much free form and free flowing early on, and we still have components of that, but we thought we can deliver more value. If we have folks, and we have two different sessions, primarily because we have offices in Berlin and we have offices here in the US. I want to make it easy for folks to engage and join these meetings, rather than say, sorry, folks, 8 or 9 a.m., that's when I'm ready to roll. That's when you need to be available for this meeting. We thought we can get one towards the afternoon in Berlin, and we can do one later in the morning in the US time, and we can find ways to true up some of that information. But we started delivering lightning talks in these security office hours, 15 minutes max. Here's something cool or a topic that you may be interested in, and it'll be deep enough so if you're technical, you feel like you understand how it works. But if you're not, you're still going to get a good understanding of what it is, why it's bad, and what do we care about it, what can we do about it. And then we open it up for any questions. Have you heard anything else? Do you have any questions about this specific topic? We also use a few minutes of that time to explain, here's our roadmap, and here's the big rocks that we're moving right now, and here's why. And Cobalt has a very unique way of being transparent with our financials, with where we're going as a business. And I took that to heart. I can very much do the same thing with my security program. If I can help folks understand why we're doing the things that we are, I'm more likely to get their buy-in and their engagement to at least listen, to make that decision for themselves. And so, I digress. When we go back, we start talking about security awareness. We have our security office hours. Come and learn, ask questions. We do quarterly threat briefings where we take a large topic that's been in the media. We add good context to it, but then we make it simple to understand. And that's very much, I cater to being able to translate it in a way that everybody can engage and follow along, but enough technical meat for those who are there to say, okay, well, what's that vulnerability and how does that work? We can still talk about it without losing everybody completely. And then we continue to seek feedback from them. We make this engaging. We make it continuous, so it's not something that we do and it's very periodic. We enable folks to come and ask questions and engage with them constantly, and that's enabled us to do testing. When we explain to all of our employees, here's the problem we solve with the SIM. Here's a problem we solve with endpoint protection. Here's a problem that we have that we want to solve with email security. Here's the solutions we're looking at. And here's why, and here's their approach. It gives them an opportunity outside of just what Cobalt does and the fact that it's cool and it's changed the game and how pen tests are delivered. But how do we think about technology and security? And it gives them a deeper appreciation for why we do what we do. And I feel like I'm an ambassador to security, at Cobalt more so than I am just steering strategy and direction, because I want their feedback. I want them to understand the why and the problems that it solves, and that enables me to help them better understand their expectations one of the things that I tell all of our new hires in their new hire orientation is, you're now part of the Cobalt security team. Congratulations, and we're welcome to have you. I don't have any preconceived notions that you know what to do. All I ask is that you buy in, you ask questions, and we will level you up. And I even have a visual of a kitten that's looking into a mirror and it sees a lion in return. I tell them, I'm going to make you a security lion. I just need you to invest that time and listen. And it's been fantastic. I found that approach I've done more in security awareness in the past year and a half that I think I've been able to accomplish as a security leader throughout most of my career. And it's been through trial by fire through this entire this journey, and making small course corrections along the way. One piece that we do that kind of ties into this is we do a security net promoter score internally. And rather than saying, would you recommend the Cobalt security team to a friend? We ask the money question to them of, is the Cobalt security team living up to your expectations? Are we working on the right things at the right time for Cobalt? And do you feel safe engaging us to be able to ask questions? And we rate that on a scale of 1 to 10, and that's our security NPS. And we ask other questions for context, but that to us is extremely powerful, because if we're missing the mark, I want to know about it. We do that quarterly. We can make corrections. We can challenge some of our assumptions, and it keeps it's a way for me to add accountability to all of our employees, that we take what they say seriously, and this isn't just lip service. That I think educating them is important. So,
I love that. I mean, that's like you're taking them on the journey, and I
absolutely.
think that is a rare thing. I do not hear of many security teams and many companies having that relationship with their security practice. I've got two questions for you. The first is, like, how did you even get to that program? Who, was it somebody who taught you, inspired you, leadership that you've had in your career? What was it that put you on that journey with Cobalt, where you said the single most important thing we can do is take our people on the journey, and we can get them involved in what we're doing here?
Great question. I've taken small bits of, I thankfully, I've worked with fantastic security leaders throughout my career. Folks like Gavin Reed, Chad Green, Carolyn Wong, and I take small pieces of each of them with me along the way of where have we had wins and what did our losses look like, and what can we learn from them. And it's part of like my personality is I can't change. I may not be able to change others in what they do, but I sure as heck can change myself in trying to figure out where we've failed. What can we learn from them so that I can do something, I can do it better the next time I have the opportunity, or I can course correct and then we can still get to a positive outcome. It doesn't always require large wholesale change. So it really was a combination of a few things. One, I've learned a lot of things along the way in my security journey, but two, the wheels really started to spin prior to joining Cobalt and having conversations around what does company culture look like. And while I was getting recruited and while I was going through this exercise, the light bulb really started to pop on when I'm talking to Jacob Hansen, our CEO, and he's saying, we're extremely transparent about all parts of our business. All of our employees should understand where we are financially, the business problems we're trying to solve, and where we're trying to go, because that allows them to come along for the journey and be much more invested rather than keeping them siloed and expecting them to just do their job. You find I've been there in my career. It just doesn't feel good. And I thought there's no reason why I can't do this with security. I've been at organizations where I was given guidance. We don't need to be transparent with security around what we're doing or why, like just go and do the thing. And that always felt wrong because I wanted folks, I found when I had conversations, so much of security is around building relationships. And I've heavily invested in those throughout my career. And I can say if there's one thing that's been the largest piece of success for me, it's been creating those relationships so that when I needed to use them at some point down the road, we know each other, we trust each other. I've done something for you, hopefully. And so when I come to you and say, hey, Tim, we have this big vulnerability and I apologize, this is critical. And so we're going to need folks to continue to work through this until we drive this because the risk is too great to let it sit. You know that I'm not coming from a place of just shooting from the hip, and that I've thought through this. And So it just all of those things sort of come into play of like this is the right place for me to try this. So let's see. And it was hugely validated during our company kickoff when I went in front of all of Cobalt and I said, this is who I am as a security leader. This is what I believe in, and this is what I really want to do for you all. And I mean, I felt like what Mick Jagger must feel like on stage, where folks were clapping and they were cheering. They were like, yes. And I'm like, okay, I'm onto something. Now I just have to deliver. And this is where that open delivery piece, and then asking questions, asking everybody from every part of our business, what do you think? And does what I say make sense? And do you think it's the right thing? And genuinely listening for their feedback, regardless of the experience that I have. If they're not bought in and they don't understand and they're not able to trust me, then who cares what I think? I need to fix my message. I need to fix my approach. And so part of it is the right culture, allowing me to plug into that, and something that just always felt right to me. And that's why Cobalt feels like my home, my tribe. We get it. We are moving in the same direction, and they're looking for me for that education, that guidance, and my team. And we're able to deliver on that. This becomes this big loop where now we have them coming to us with great questions. And it's like, you know what? Let's turn that into a threat briefing. You want to understand that this is more than a 30-minute conversation that I think everybody could gain some value from. Let's do it. And it's fantastic. It's very rewarding. I'm a dad and a coach. It feels that same way of helping my kids get on a bike for the first time and you let go. When I'm mentoring somebody and then they move into a new role and they're able to experience that success, I get the same thrill of the hunt that I used to get chasing bad guys and bringing them to justice digitally through as an incident responder, helping folks see the light, helping them understand, and helping them feel safe in asking questions. And that's enabled us, what I think is going to help us continue to win at what we do.
I mean, you're totally right. You've got to have, it all starts with culture. It starts with the culture of the organization that you're working for, and you're trying to build this in. And there'll be I'm sure some security leaders that are listening and saying, well, this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually how do you get started on something like this when the sky is always falling, or we're always too busy, or we've always got other priorities? What advice do you have for them? How can every company begin on this journey to actually start building this relationship with their employees from a security perspective and actually bring them into the fold?
Absolutely. I agree that it can be tough in different organizations, different situations, different culture, but you can absolutely start by surveying all of your stakeholders and all of your employees. If you're the security leader, you're a CISO for an organization, you're responsible for security of the business as a whole. And your employees' buy-in and understanding is a critical component to your delivery and overall trust in the security organization. Start off by asking them, what do they think of you? Do they understand what you're doing? Do they understand why? And do they feel safe coming to you with concerns, questions? Do they know how to report incidents? And do they feel comfortable doing that? Or do they feel like they'll get their hands slapped? Having an open mind to be able to ask some of those questions, even if you ask it in an anonymous survey, take that in and figure out, what can I do with this? And if you can start to pull nuggets of, well, it seems like folks genuinely care, they just don't have an outlet, then you can create that outlet for them. Or take a leap, try something and know that it may fail. But if you can garner enough support from some of your stakeholders, hey folks, I'm thinking about putting together this meeting maybe once a week, or maybe every other week, or everybody's busy, maybe once a month, but I want to be able to bring folks together. And I'll start by talking about a topic, but I really want your engagement. I want to open it up to questions. And if you can seed some of that with maybe some of your security champions, folks throughout the company who tend to lean forward into security and have that partnership, then ask them to bring others along. Start there and figure out where that goes, and recognize you're going to give it a go. You're going to learn. Take what you've learned and do some small course corrections, and then go at it again. And with perseverance, and if you don't give up, you're going to eventually find a way to continue to provide that value. And you'll realize, it can grow organically from there. Oh, well, the security team actually cares about what you think. And, oh, you don't know how to do that. This specific thing, you don't understand why it's an issue. Come and chat, or come and share some of your feedback, some of your thoughts, and then use what you hear to drive change. And I feel like that's a bit of the missing link. You can have great conversations, but if folks feel like, they're sharing this and you're not going to do anything with it, they'll lose trust. Some of that credibility is gone. And so, being able to take some of that feedback and show them, I've heard what you said. Because of this, we're going to now change our approach with this. And then we're also going to do this net new thing. And we're going to drive this, we're going to run it. And over the next 6 months, we're going to come back and I want your feedback. Did this hit the mark? Was this your expectation? Do you feel like we're getting the same value based off of the assumptions that you had made previously? And it really is that feedback loop that enables me to continue to win, my team to continue to win, and for us to maintain that same level of trust. As we don't let some of those concerns, some of those thoughts go to waste. We really try to find a way to turn them into action if we can.
Yeah, and of course it's a two-way thing as well. Like this investment you make in building that relationship with the employees and with the people that you support in your organization. I guess when you do push out those initiatives or when you are working on something that's important and you need people behind it, they are more willing to carry that forward, right? You have empathy
Absolutely.
on both sides. If you show them empathy and you understand their situation, you understand that, hey, we know that everybody isn't a security expert and we're here to educate you about that. We're here to tell you about it. You also get the empathy from them that they say, well, look, Ray and his team have asked us to do this and we need to be champions for it. I mean, I presume that that's something you see and you kind of reap the rewards of too.
Absolutely. I've remember many times in my career asking, why the heck are we even doing this? Like all this is going to do is make my job harder. It starts with why. And if I haven't done a good job preemptively answering why, then I should expect some friction in adoption of new changes, either adoption of technology where I need folks to change some of their behavior. I need them to do something different. If I haven't led with the why, I should expect that it's not going to go well. I'm not going to have that buy-in.
Yeah, yeah. And switching gears slightly, I wanted to talk about something that you've done a lot of writing about on a security-aware workforce being critical in the digital age. And you talk about creating custom security training and awareness programs for all employees. And I think, again, this is something pretty unique. I would say in most organizations I see or talk to, there is a security awareness program. It is generally one size fits all. There is a lot of debate about the effectiveness of actually what kind of behavior behavior change does it drive. Would love to hear more about how you're taking things that step further. And I guess why is it important that we have custom security programs for every single person in our company?
Great question. I'm glad you asked, and I should have included that as a part of the my initial monologue around security awareness. But it does go that next level deeper, especially when you're dealing with teams that don't traditionally partner with security as a means of their daily job. You can see, especially for tech companies or tech-enabled companies, security and development are likely going to have a strong partnership because security is going to drive a lot. There's a lot of natural initiatives that fall into engineering. There may be an organization where they have KPIs or they have metrics that they're reporting around security flaws, and they may be looking for guidance as well. But there's more in the organization than just engineering or just those technology teams. And I found that if I can help individual teams understand the threats that they're likely to face within their team, going to finance and helping them understand you're more likely to be phished. And some of the other finance and accounting teams at other organizations have been attacked in this way. And it's been led, these business email compromise type of phishing schemes that led to a real material impact on some of these organizations and hundreds of millions of dollars of loss. And here's what it typically looks like, and here's what you can see. And so, I found by talking about threats that are relevant to those teams allows it to make it actionable for them in the short term. And this goes back to a little bit around the why. If I'm selling you on a problem that, Tim, you're less likely to face. Tim, for all those farm owners out there, they deal with this specific type of threat, and you're like, well, I don't know the farm. Why do I care? I'm never going to have to worry about these types of threats. It's easy to tune out, grab your phone, and no longer listen. And it's easier for us to invest some elbow grease to say these are the things that I believe you're going to see, but then also make it open-ended. What have you seen so far? And what are those things that worry you? because that gives me an opportunity and a natural touch point to come back and say, great, I'm going to look into that. I'm going to get figure out our story and figure out what we can do and what the best guidance is. I'm great at shooting from the hip, but I also at times would like to tell, our internal customers, let me think about this in a more methodical way, and come back to a more of a consolidated approach. And by building some of that repeatability, even if they don't come to the security office hours that I talked about, we're still going to talk about threats specific to them within their team. They may feel more comfortable asking questions about than anything else. And so, things, if I can make it real to them, they're more likely to buy in and engage. And we found that hugely valuable. We do the same thing for our go-to-market teams. We're helping them understand who's the security buyer, but also what could you possibly look like as a victim or from an attacker's point of view. And here's some of the things that you need to be aware of. And our customer success team, the same thing. Our marketing team, the same thing. Our pen test community folks. It's important for us to come with threats that they're likely to face, but also listen to them, hear their concerns, and be able to come back and coach them in the ways that we think we can. And it's making it real. It's giving them an opportunity to lean in and feel comfortable.
And like similar question on that as well. I'm just again thinking that most security awareness training is blasting every employee with phishing simulation, right? Until they finally end up falling for one and clicking on the link and then getting the knuckles wrapped from the security team. But like, what's your advice for those security teams that really have this aspiration to deliver a white glove service to their employees, in terms of, we want to make sure that every piece of training we give you or every piece of security advice is tailored to you or your team? How can they get started on that? It sounds obviously like there's a lot of upfront work and there's a lot of time involved in that. But are there any shortcuts or any tips you'd advise on?
I would say start off simple and be pragmatic with your approach. If you try to boil the ocean, I've been at some extremely large organizations, large complex organizations, some of those that you mentioned here when you were doing my introduction, where if I were to think about targeted training for every one of the teams across the entire organization, I think my heart would fall out of my chest. But I can absolutely think about 1 to 2 problems that I want to solve and figure out how I can validate my assumption that it's this idea that I have that this can work, and I'm gonna do 2 or 3 things with 2 or 3 groups to give it a try, and then I'm gonna use them as an opportunity to be my evangelists, to hopefully gain more buy-in and learn from them. And then at that point, you can start saying, okay, maybe I can start to organize some of the different groups into general buckets, where the training that we can deliver to them can be generalized based off of, if you're go-to-market, you're going to be in this bucket. If you're R&D, which is your product folks, development, et cetera, they may be more interested in these classes of threats or these types of issues. And if you're technology, infrastructure, et cetera, you can start to put them in different buckets. And even if you think about scale, you can present live to maybe 1 or 2 or each of these teams, and then record that session, and then allow your teams to be able to push that out. I mean, we live in a global age now where we're all working remotely across different time zones, asking folks to make time for a meeting to engage when it's at a, we all have families, we all have other responsibilities. Sometimes it's difficult, but if we give them the opportunity where they have an interest and they can watch it offline, and they can still have an opportunity, maybe they have a Slack channel to come back and ask questions, that'll give them the opportunity to still engage. And so I think there's absolutely ways to do it. You don't have to start big. You can start small, learn, and then scale it over time. I've also used the Security Champions program, where if you invest in them as those security thinkers and other groups, you get them to be your evangelists as well. You allow them to take in some of the feedback. You allow them to deliver and train, giving them the presentation, giving them speaker notes, giving them a talk track, giving them the opportunity to shine with some of their peers within their organizations. That's also worked really well. And so if you think about, I don't have to do all the things myself. For us as a security organization, we don't have to do everything ourselves. Think about how you can utilize those who are sympathetic to security to enable them to carry the message.
Yeah. And I love that point as well you raise about asynchronous communication and video recording and things like that. There's some amazing platforms and tools where you can kind of share those. Well, you can produce it once and you can kind of share it thousands and thousands of times over. Um, it would be remiss of me if I didn't take the advantage to talk to you about different security cultures. You have worked for many different companies and all amazing organizations in their own right doing very different things. I'm not going to ask you to kind of rank your best security culture to worst security culture, but like I'm interested in, have you observed patterns at the organizations that you've been at of the different kinds of security practices and security cultures? And what do you think, if there are patterns and if you've got kind of groupings for them, what are the trade-offs that come with each of those?
I've been at organizations where, if you think about the stick and carrot analogy, security has been more stick than carrot, and I found at those organizations there tends to be more friction to just engaging or even buy-in, because it's being force-fed at them. At my previous organization, it was probably one of the most openly discussed security culture as a whole, where that there was a responsibility to the customer that required everybody to think about security within their domain. Maybe I should have led with that when you asked me the question earlier of what's really helped me figure that out. Taking components of driving a sense of ownership through education. Maybe that was the biggest light bulb moment for me, and I was figuring out the right way to apply that. But having folks be incentivized to learn, to understand, to listen. There's been other organizations where I've ran into so much friction. I've gone to the senior leadership team and said, "Can we add a security goal?" And maybe that's the way to help folks buy in and actually care about security, because there were things within the organization, things within the culture that it was just not going to go my way, and we weren't going to be able to have the impact that we wanted. And so, but there were always bits and pieces along the way. Leading with why at every organization that I've done that, even at a smaller scale with stakeholders, it's that was always the constant. If I think about it, getting folks to understand why enables them to be able to buy in, and maybe using them to kind of carry the message forward from there. But if you're somebody who's listening, you're at an organization where you're running into some of that friction, think about how you can change up your approach, and think about what the driver to security is, and don't be scared to try to reboot your position with small groups and ask them for their feedback, because it absolutely can work. And no company, I would say no culture is really a lost cause. There's absolutely positives that can come out of it. You may need to rethink about what your expectations can and should be, and then figure out, don't be scared to push the bar up, and just be ready to roll up your sleeves and take what you learn and adapt from there.
And I realize all my questions around empowering employees really has been about, I guess, the day-to-day, the people who are in the operational flow of the company and the people that you're supporting, I guess, on a daily basis. But a really important group of stakeholders here is the board. And, presumably you've been involved in presenting security to the board. How's that changed over the past decade? And again, what advice do you have there?
The board was a fantastic mystery for me early on in my career, and I had a couple of stumbles that we all read about now in all of the guidance that we're given here, especially on LinkedIn and such, of how to better present to the board. I was that individual. My first opportunity, I led with technical information that the board wasn't ready to hear, or it wasn't necessarily appropriate for them, and so they quickly tuned out, or I enabled them to kind of poke holes into questions that I hadn't foreseen and I wasn't able to answer. So a lot of my approach now is to try to understand, well, who is the board and who are they as individuals, and can I grab time with them before standing in front of them, so I can better understand what they're most worried about, what they think about, and I can cater my message to have the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time. I mean, most board presentations that I've had has been anywhere from 3 minutes to, I think, 15 minutes may have been, the largest portion, to try to sum up all the great things we're doing in security into that small time window. It has to be extremely simple and clear. On top of that, I had to learn how to speak business, going from a technology background, to help them understand, to relate it to terms that they can take action on. And I had to be clear. Is this just a briefing? Or am I asking for your validation? Or am I asking for your support for a direction that we want to go? Setting that context, giving them the information, allowing them to ask questions and collect feedback. But that's been, the biggest change that I've made, is to try to understand the board, what they care about, and deliver enough so that they feel aware, but also understand that the best conversations you can have with the board happen outside of the board meeting, because you give them an opportunity to ask you questions, to understand you as a security leader. And can I answer that question in their head? Is this the right person for this company to be able to manage the sea of risks that this company is going to continue to manage and hopefully resolve over time? But then you also get to hear from them. What are they thinking about? What are other companies that their board's on, or the companies that they're associated with? Are there things that I can learn from them that we can apply here that maybe a year or two down the road, or they're a large issue that I need to be thinking about now? Cobalt has a value of humble learning, and I take that to heart. As I've been around the block, but I definitely don't know everything, and so I want to learn from as many different people as possible. I want to hear their questions, their thoughts, because it very much opens my eyes to something new that I haven't thought about, or I didn't think was relevant, or I wrote off in some way. And so it gives me an opportunity to kind of check myself and challenge my own assumptions, and that's been fantastic, and it enables me to continue to win trust, with my board, and to provide value to them that they can actually use.
I think that's value shone through on this podcast. I was going to say, I mean, the thing that has really stood out in our discussion, I think, is that in all your interactions with all of the people that you support and that rely on you and your team, it's this concept of empathy, right? You are taking the time, thinking about them, their experience of security, their interaction with you and your team, and you have empathy for them. And I think we can all kind of take a leaf from that book. It's so important. Ray, it's been.
I appreciate it.
No, I was going to say, it's been amazing to have you on the podcast, and thank you for your time. I should have added at the beginning, but Cobalt actually have their own podcast as well, The Humans of InfoSec. We will include a link to that in the show notes, and also, Ray, a link to your background. I highly encourage everybody follow Ray and your writing and your thought leadership as well. It's been great to cover all of these topics today. We always like to finish the show by asking our guests a couple of quick fire random questions to get to know the people behind the podcast a little bit better. So my first question for you, Ray, is, when lockdown is all over, what's the city that you want to visit first?
I want to get back to Berlin. We have an office there. It's a beautiful city. I want to get back there and see my team that's there, have some beers, and enjoy the beautiful scenery.
I can't wait to get back to business travel, and that's something that I thought I'd never say. And what are the 3 apps on your phone that you couldn't live without?
LinkedIn. As a humble learner, I'm continuing to not only learn through business, but also continue to hone my craft. So I'm going through SANS training. And so I have the SANS app on my phone as I continue to become a better pen tester, so I can better understand our customers and provide value. And then lastly, I would say Slack. I've had the ability to engage with not only my company and my peers, but other CISOs within the industry, and being able to just support each other, share feedback. Those are the things that I think get the most app play time on my weekly report, for sure.
That's awesome. Ray, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been great to speak with you today. And I know that our guests will take a lot from this.
Thank you for your time, Tim. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And that just leaves me to say thank you very much for listening. We'll be back with more human layer security insights in our next episode. But if you can't wait that long, you can visit our blog at tessian.com/blog, where you'll find lots of amazing content, advice, and tips. And if you enjoyed our show, please rate and review it on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.